Order. Good afternoon to everybody.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we are live. You're good to go.
I'm gonna call the meeting to order, and I'm gonna just ask for a moment, put ourselves in the presence of the Lord, and ask for a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Let's entertain a motion to approve the minutes from May 20th, 2000.
Second.
And second, any questions on those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposals? Ayes have it. We down to item E1. Authorization notify SCDOT that the city intends to accept maintenance of a portion of multi-use path and pave entrance in conjunction with Foley project at 1575 Foley Road. Who's gonna handle this one?
Mr. Chairman?
O'Brien.
Yes, sir. How are you today?
Good. How about you?
I'm fine, sir. This is one of our maintenance agreements for taking over maintenance of a multi-use path. TRC recommended and required this path on this project, and we are taking over the maintenance as we've done many times recently at several meetings.
So is it new construction or something that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. A new project.
I tell you what, I was on again Johns Island yesterday, and I saw some of the new development on Maybank Highway that had that multi-modal path on it. It looks good.
Yes, sir. They're really nice, and I think people are starting to share between bikes and walkers and everything. They're becoming kind of the standard and norm instead of just a normal 5-foot sidewalk.
Right. Any questions? We have a motion to accept this.
So moved.
Properly moved in.
Second.
Any more questions on that pathway? All in favor, would you please say aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item E2, accept a new permanent and exclusive stormwater drainage easement from Ravenel Properties,
That's
LLC.
Mr. Fountain, if he would enlighten us on that one.
Mr. Fountain?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is the first of 4 drainage easements we're working to acquire for the East Oak, West Oak Forest outfall.
Oh man, that's great.
So it's on the south side of 17, across the canal from the church over by the Finn's Car Wash.
Listen, thank you so much for this one, Mr. Fountain. This is Mr. Mayor and everybody, you familiar with this one, Mr. Mayor? You spoke to those people at East Oak Forest who, in large part, flood during heavy raining events, even on low tide, because the water just can't get out fast enough. So it's great progress right here. I would move approval, but I can't. I'm chair, so I have to ask someone else to move approval on this.
Say so moved.
Properly moved, then we get a second.
Second.
Probably moved in second, and any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you again, Mr. Fountain. That's a big one. Mr. O'Brien, item F 1, 2, and 3, encroachments. Anything unusual that need to be?
No, sir. This is one fence and 2 right angle signs for some businesses. All of them have been inspected and have the proper requirements necessary from planning and engineering to have the items in the encroachment, and we recommend and give these as information to the committee only.
All right, thank you for so much. As we know, that's provides information only. Item G1, environmental services update, Mr. Altop.
I've got this, Mr.
You gonna
Chairman.
do that one? Okay, Mr.
Sir,
O'Brien.
also, before I do that, I'd like to take a moment. Everybody should be aware, and Councilmember Gregg, I'm sure, is very happy. On the night of June 6th, we actually opened the Beresford Creek Bridge replacement, and people are now have access and egress on Daniel Island. It's a great job, and Councilmember Gregg had a lot of great work helping us getting word out to the citizens on that. I'd like to thank him for that, and also to JMT, our engineer, and Cape Romaine, our contractor. They got that thing in. We had one little delay at the end because we had a soils issue on one side, but that bridge is operational. We have the multi-use path is not available yet. We had a manufacturer that went out of business, so we're replacing the railing, and that'll be done this summer. And once we do, we'll have a grand opening and ribbon cutting, report that to the committee. Loaders and 2 which we anticipating, and we'll keep you guys apprised and posted.
Mr. O'Brien, what's an ASL?
That's an automatic side loader. That's one arm that picks up your.
PSD with one before we got one. You know, I got ticked on that. So Glad that we got ours, man.
Yes, sir. They're doing a great job, and our crews really are very efficient using those to pick up our garbage.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and Liz and everybody, well, congratulations again to Councilman Gregg for that bridge. He took us all when he came on, Mr. Mayor. He had an advantage. He was a hockey player. He had his mask and hockey sticks and pads. We didn't have any. He beat us up, got the money, and got that bridge in there in no time flat, man. So congratulations again.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. This was a long, hard project to get done. It's been years in the works, so it's good to have that behind us, and looking forward to getting the multi-use path wrapped up now.
And Councilmember Gregg and Mr. Chairman, I just also like to report, I'm working with, I'm on the Berkeley County CTC, as you're aware, and I'm working with Danny Thrower and Johnny Cribb up there. We're going to do some resurfacing of Daniel Island Drive and also Thomas Island. But we're waiting for the construction on the old Blackball site so we don't put new road in that gets torn up. But we're going to have those roads, so that entrance to Daniel Island will be really looking nice here in the next few months.
Do you there's that one last section, Mr. O'Brien, from it's basically Fairchild Road to where the new bridge embankment starts.
Yes, sir.
So that section, and I mean, so you'll pave that when they pave so you think sometime in the next 3 or 4 months y'all be.
Yes, sir. That's the plan. We're working with the contractor on the Blackball project, and we want to make sure that they're out of there with all their heavy equipment before we go in there and resurface that road.
All right, sounds good. Thank you very much, and thank you all, to you and all your staff for all y'all have done. Glad to have it done, or at least glad to see vehicles over it. I guess it's not done yet, but it's a nice drive too.
Councilwoman Parker, I see your hand.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. And how about staffing? I know we just received an HR report for, I believe, May, but just how are your crews looking environmental service wise?
Councilmember Parker, I'm proud to report Brandon Sott, who has been with us for a little over a year now, as our environmental services superintendent, and he and Matt, myself, and I give Brandon most of the credit. We're almost fully staffed. We have, I think, 2 driver vacancies in garbage and 2 in trash, but we're also constantly interviewing. I actually approved a requisition for an offer from one of those drivers today. So we're kind of at an all-time high, and they're doing a great job. Brandon's doing an excellent job of getting us candidates in, and HR is doing a great job of getting them through and getting them processed.
Yeah, you guys are doing a great job. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, well, good news all the way around. Down to H1, King Street Pump Station, Mr. Fountain.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is the approval for the construction contract with S.J. Hamel, who was the low bidder for the project. It's a construction contract of just over $19 million. This also sets up our project budget, provides the $100,000 authorization for small changes to the project. This includes $10 million of funding from the SCRIA SKIP grant that we received for the project, as well as funding from a number of other sources, Cooper River Bridge TIF, some CWS funding that came in the first phase of the project we already completed, the Drainage Fund, and then, as I mentioned, that SKIP grant.
You know, new people on the to this project. It started out, we were hoping to get $5 million to get this thing going, and now it's 19 million to be approved. I mean, it's good work. Some of these grants that Mr. Fountain came up and applied with the SCARA and the SKIP plant, that wasn't in our vocabulary before Mr. Fountain came. So, man, congratulations on bringing this funding together. There's a fire station on Hugie Street that has a John boat. The water gets so deep to help ferry people out of this area when unsuspecting drivers think they can go through it. But anyway, so Chair entertains a motion to pass this $19 million contract.
So moved.
Probably moved by Mr.
Second.
Mayor, seconded by Councilman Gregory. Any more questions on this project? Long time coming. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you again, Mr. Fountain, and your team and everybody, grant writers, everybody involved with that. H2, King Street Pump Station. Mr. Fountain?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is the fee amendment with JMT to add the CEI services for the construction phase of the project onto that existing professional service contract. $736,783.92. Includes some archaeological investigation support work that we need as part of the permits for the project with the project site, as well as all the inspections, the on-site staffing, and everything else associated with engineer of record activities for the project.
All right, what's the pleasure of the committee?
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved by the mayor, second by Councilman Gregg. Any more discussion on that? All in favor, would you please say aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? NIFWA, Akron, Mr.
Explain. Thank you. So I did have some slides for King Uji. I think we went over them last Public Works Utilities meeting, so I think we don't need to go through them again unless anyone wants to see them. But as you mentioned, the rainfall at that intersection is pretty heavy and significant, and just a view again of what that pump station will look like.
Right.
Lovely area. So item 3, the National Fish Wildlife Foundation Flood Storage Project. This is the grant that we have out of the Emergency Coastal Resilience Fund for the work that we're doing in Church Creek on the flood storage projects. We had an opportunity with some additional funding they had available to do an amendment to our existing grant to expand the scope to another flood storage project and receive an additional $1 million towards project work. Like many federal agencies, they work on a relatively short time frame for some of the expenditures of their funding. They had some other projects that didn't move forward like they expected, so they gave us some opportunities to apply. This is a request again then to approve us requesting an amendment to our project grant to add in the Howell Avenue Flood Storage Project, which is an existing small project that the city is doing collaboratively with the county. It was a Greenbelt acquired property in James Island at the end of Howell Avenue. Again, you can see the heavy flooding on Howell Avenue. The reason it fits into this grant for the short-term amendment is that we're just about through permitting. We're just finalizing some Army Corps of Engineer permits, and it is another flood storage project where we're taking this more than 3 acres of property and develop, like basically, you can see the property on the left is this grassed area sort of sitting behind these industrial buildings at the end of Howell. We're going to take a stream / canal that runs to the side of that property currently and expand it through the property site and turn it into kind of a wetland floodplain. We're going to excavate a lot of old kind of construction debris and material that's been disposed of on this site historically. The county's actually going to perform a lot of that work for us under an agreement we had with the county as part of this project. We're going to come back then and backfill it and add in native vegetation, wetland features, a walking trail around the outside of the site, a little boardwalk causeway that will connect Howell Avenue down to the next public roadway, giving people a route to get up between these two neighborhoods. Then leave a sort of a small picnic area that can also be programmed by parks later if they need to. Again, this site generally through city permitting, just finalizing some national scale wetland permitting for the causeway. $1 million of allocation comes pretty close to what we expect for construction on the project. So if there's any questions on that, certainly let me know, but it's a pretty unique opportunity to be able to find some additional grant funding.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Gregory?
Yeah, I'd really like to thank our stormwater department for this one. We've been working on this for years, and it is a multi-jurisdictional area. And it's great how you brought all the factors together. Really appreciate that. Thanks a lot.
I tell you, it definitely looks interesting. I tell you that. What's the pleasure of the committee? We have a motion on the floor.
Move for approval.
Second.
Probably moved and seconded. Any more discussion? Ms. Parker, this is on James Island. You don't have any comment on this one? Thumbs up?
Move for approval, yeah.
Okay, great. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. H4 check file program, Mr. Fountain.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is kind of another interesting one. We there, you can see on the map, this is I-20 6 coming in, the entrance over to Ravenel Bridge here with Newmarket Creek on the side of the page, Romney running across the page here, Morrison kind of running the outside. You can see the blue highlighting shows areas that we get recurrent flooding, especially during tidal conditions. Obviously, you get compounded if you get rain during tidal conditions, but that dark blue is more than 2 feet deep. The notes on here are ground elevations. So you can see there's about 3.6 foot of ground elevation here, which explains the very high flooding levels we get during even moderate tides. What we're proposing to do is to add some check valves down on Meeting Street under Newmarket Creek where there's a pipe connection to that tidal influence. The reason we show the flooding at the levels we show it is if you get above a tide above that level, you'll actually get overland flow coming up some of these streets and flooding out the area anyway. But we can eliminate feet of flooding from the addition of those check valves. We're looking at some longer term projects potentially along Morrison and Newmarket Creek to do a higher level of flood protection. But this is a relatively short term project because this area is impacting so many different property owners. We did reach out to some partner agencies, which is what we're approving here. The item 4 being an MOU with CWS, who's offered to contribute $10,000 towards check valves in this location due to the impacts they have on their sewer system from tidal flooding in the area. We'll have item 5 in a minute, which will be with one of the developers in this area who is having issues with flooding in their streets coming into their property. So they've offered to contribute $20,000 to the project. That would leave the city with about $25,000 left. And we would run the actual construction contract to install those check valves. We've worked through this with DOT and they've agreed to let us put the check valves into their pipe system under Newmarket Creek. So item 4, which is the item we're talking about right now, is the approving the MOU with CPW, doing business with CWS for that $10,000 cost share. Any questions on that? I'm happy to address.
All right, let's take a motion on this one.
Move for approval.
Second.
Probably moved and seconded. Any discussion on this one? Let me ask a question, Mr. Fountain. You said the elevation at the deepest portion with 2 feet of water was what?
It's about 3.6 feet is the ground elevation in that area.
What's the elevation in the marsh?
The marsh tends to sit anywhere between 0 and 2 feet, 0 and 3 feet. So that's a 6.5 foot tide or 6.6 foot tide would bring water into that low area.
Wow, that's rough. All in favor, would you please say aye on this one?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. H5?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So this is the MOA now with MSP. It's just the LLC that operates one of the facilities in this area, and they are looking to contribute $20,000 again towards the installation of these check valves as a reimbursement to the city.
Move for approval.
Properly moved by Councilman Gregg, seconded by. We get a second?
Second.
Your second's getting to be tough to come by. Any more discussion on H5? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. H6, update on the Peachtree outfall. It was a nice article and paper on that one last week.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is just an update that we've completed the contractor-led cleaning of this outfall, about 500 feet of outfall at the end of Peachtree and Wagner Terrace. In blue is showing the very approximate area that'll receive some benefit from that outfall cleaning. We're going to come back. We're working through doing neighborhood pipe cleaning now that the outfalls are cleaned and potentially installing a check valve at the outfall in Peachtree as well. There's a couple of low, so somewhat bowl areas in here that would be benefited from a check valve. On the right, you can see kind of the drone shot of that outfall being cleaned and how minimal the marsh impacts are from that outfall cleaning. It really is just the channel that is impacted and opened back up to let water flow. So this will not eliminate flooding in Wagner Terrace. There are still some issues if you get a heavy enough rainfall, especially at a higher tide, but it'll help the area drain out much quicker. And at lower tides, it certainly will not have nearly the flooding issues it has now in those low-lying areas.
Could you touch, I think, on the technique that was used to clear out the channel?
Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Chairman. So these outfall permits or outfall projects require permitting through both the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and through the state OCRM office because of the marsh impacts. The preferred method from both of those agencies at this point is hydro excavation, where basically we bring a vac truck out and they use what amounts to like an industrial grade pressure washer to kind of break up the dirt and muck that's accumulated in the channel. And then they use basically a very large vacuum, which is the vac truck, to suck up that broken up material. And they take it, dewater it, and then dispose of the material at a landfill. That's the methodology preferred by the environmental agencies at this point. So it's very minimal impact. It's very expensive, but it does provide a huge benefit once we're able to get the water to actually flow out into open water from these pipe systems that are relatively low in elevation compared to the marsh.
There was a time, Mr. Mayor, when we tried to get this done and DHEC wouldn't give the permits for this and wanted us to do it by hand with a shovel. Can you imagine that? That's right. That's why I was so glad to hear we got experience from DHEC and your administration. Hopefully we can get through things like that. But anyway,
Mr. Chair,
clean up the
Mr.
outfalls was a challenge. Councilman Gregory.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if anyone really knows that area and the severity of the flooding in that area, anything will be an improvement. Is this going to do anything to Gordon Street, though, Matt?
So this one does not get that far south.
Okay.
Gregory, that's another outfall project that we're working through right now, looking at the permitting on. It's that one is a combination of sort of the 10th Street outfall and behind the church there. We've done what cleaning we could without extensive permitting, and now we got to work through the permitting on that one because that's another area that really would benefit from the cleaning.
And this is one of our small projects, right?
That's correct. This was one of the small projects.
And the benefit is going to be unbelievable. Unbelievable, folks. I don't know if anybody knows that area, but it is definitely lakefront when there's a hard rain and high tide. So this is, I mean, the folks in Wagner Terrace are really elated about this one. Really thankful.
It is good news. I did see Ms. Dick take her microphone off. Did you have something to contribute? Or maybe not. Okay. All right. Any more comments on this one? Thanks for the update, Mr. Fountain. Thomas Johnson, Council Lady Parker. I know we discussed this at Recreation.
We did, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Fountain, and all of you other members, because you did already have to hear all of this during Recreation, but I know that some of these projects kind of overlap, so it's kind of difficult to, figure out who exactly or where we are, so thank you. Is this you, Mr. Fountain? Do you want me to let you go, or?
Oh, either way is fine with me, Councilmember Parker. I just brought up some notes in case you wanted to discuss any details on them.
Perfect. Then I'll just shoot down these as well. So Thomas Johnson, I think, so from Recreation, Councilmember Waring had a great suggestion that we, CWS, we as a city and CWS kind of talk with JIPSD to figure out what the issue is. Are you on board with that? Is that something your department should handle, or just we're going to request that through the mayor's office that CWS look into it?
We can certainly help coordinate with CWS if that's helpful, but either way would be fine. We don't have a day-to-day role with them, but we certainly have a good relationship with them.
Okay. And I think, Mr. Mayor, that request was going to come from your office, or should Mr. Fountain take it from here?
Why don't we tag team? I mean, doesn't hurt, more the merrier. And Matt, maybe we can talk about this tomorrow. I think we're meeting at 2:30, so on a separate matter, just figure out how to move forward and see if we can lean on it.
We appreciate it because we just want to figure out and resolve the issue.
Yep.
All right, and the golf course, obviously, Parks gave us an update, Mr. Fountain, as I'm sure you know some of what that is, but can you tell us where we are?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know from what I've reviewed, their submittal they had put in February that we commented on in April was very close to approval. So it was a much better submittal. And they resubmitted that just last Wednesday to address our last comment. So hopefully that will be an easy approval. We don't want to promise anything until we've actually read the resubmittal that they put in last week, but ideally that will take care of the issues because I know they were very close on that as of the comments we gave them in April.
Okay, because I think he gave us a good timeline of September starting construction, completion November. I know
That's
that
what
might
we're
be out
bidding
of
for
your,
the project.
but that's what you're still feeling good about that?
So I feel very hopeful about their stormwater approval, which would let them then continue with their bidding and beyond that time frame. So I don't necessarily want to speak to the park side of what they expect their construction timeframe to look like. But if that's what Mr. Kronsberg felt they were able to hit, then that sounds very reasonable.
Okay. And do you think, I mean, are there, components to this process that we as a council or anyone else need to address that, again, I know we've talked about this before, but just being a city project, I know it doesn't necessarily have to just get pushed to the top just because it's the municipal golf course, but it just seems like it did take a very long time to see this one through.
It did take longer than I would expect for the two restroom approach. I think a lot of that is just how busy the industry is right now. That there is, I mean, it is great to be in a booming city, but there are downsides to being in a booming city. And everything is just a little bit slower, both on the review side from a booming city and from the engineering side of the consultants in a booming city. It's a lot of progress being made, but sometimes the progress gets in its own way.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for the update. And then my final item, as you can see, was just the high school. I think many committee members and staff saw the email from, I believe, their engineer, with a pretty detailed timeline. And it doesn't seem like a large project. So again, I'm just, what is the holdup? And I see you're saying the approval will be issued this week.
Yeah, this one was a relatively straightforward project where we had met early with them that they were going to basically build a two-story press box and a relatively large batting cage, which triggered some stormwater requirements. And the route that we had suggested based on our discussions with them was just basically changing some of their impervious area or some of their unused area back into forest. And they had seemed like that was good. And it just sort of took a little while to, I guess, get a clean submittal together. But we met with them again last week when their engineer got back in the office, and they went through the submittal with us and showed that they had got that, what we call a curve number reduction, to work, and that should get them an approval. So should be on their way. So it's basically just all they're doing is adding some trees to comply with stormwater for their site.
I know, it just seems pretty, I thought it was like this grand project, and it's somewhat, smaller. It's just, once again, are we tripping over ourselves here? Is there something that we need to talk about as a committee, as a council, just to make the process a little easier?
It's a moderately complex civil engineering project, but it was a pretty straightforward stormwater design. So I don't know, other than that they have a lot of simultaneous projects going on at their facility, and they were trying to juggle all of the different projects perhaps and figure out how to do that from a master plan perspective. But I think this is, and I think the engineer would probably agree, it's one of the easier ones from a compliance perspective that we've had. I mean, putting in a few forested areas on your site is about as minimal as you can get from a stormwater spend.
Okay. Okay. So approval being issued this week means there's nothing else that the city, there's no other boxes to check within the city. The rest is on them.
Well, no stormwater boxes, at least. I'm not 100% sure. I think that's what they were waiting on, but sounds like it was just stormwater, which if it was, then they'd be good from a stormwater perspective.
Okay. All right. Well, sounds good. Thank you, everyone, for entertaining this. I'll be back next month.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thanks.
Councilman Gray?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so, Mr. Fountain, I don't know. It seems like on a lot of these projects, we're getting, and I mean, you and I have talked about this separately. We get lots of reviews, and you alluded to this, the booming city. So, I've been in the consulting engineering business for the first 10 years of my career. I mean, how much of this do you think is engineers wanting to bill hours and resubmit because they make more money doing that versus um are they missing stuff on submittals? Because I mean, some of these are getting resubmitted 2, 3, 4 times, and then your department's sort of stuck reviewing again and again and again, which obviously has the backlog. So I don't know, is there like are they just not getting the message the first time? Why what do you think the root cause of multiple re-reviews? Because I mean, in my world, like if you had something that got resubmitted twice, I mean, that was really bad. You never wanted to go back for a second, have to go for a third resubmittal.
I think it's a mix. I don't think we have very many firms that are, if any, that are trying to bill hours at this point. I think we're almost in the opposite challenge where many of the firms are so busy and under so much pressure to get something submitted to be able to say the project has been submitted and it's not them as the holdup, that there isn't always the most thorough QA, QC work on the project at the upfront. And sometimes we get used a little bit as that QA, QC, especially if you have newer engineers on projects. And that's not universal either. I mean, there are some excellent projects still being submitted and getting through very quickly on review. And some of it is that the sites that are developing, some of them are very hard sites, right? A lot of the easy sites are kind of done in Charleston, other than perhaps Councilman Gregg, some of the Cainhoy area, which still has some pretty well developable properties. Those have complexity in the sense of all the Army Corps permits and wetland permits associated with some of those developments, but they have better draining soils, better outfalls. But a lot of the other infill project sites are tricky. I mean, they're complicated from a stormwater perspective. So you will see, especially as costs keep going up, there's an increased benefit to being able to add one more unit or an extra 1,000 square feet of commercial space, and the cost of a resubmittal is relatively minor compared to those potential profits. And then I think there was a little bit of an industry sitting for a while, waiting to see if interest rates would come down. I think there was some real hope that that would happen this year, and it hasn't happened as much. So hasn't really slowed things down as much as we expected. But it's not every project. I think it's also the ones you tend to hear about are the ones that have challenges, right? So it's a little bit of the bias of like a data bias, right? That the projects you'll hear the most about are the ones that are having the most challenges. But there are also a large number of projects that move through very smoothly and don't necessarily have as many challenges.
Gotcha.
Mr. Fountain, where are we? And maybe you could give an update to the committee on initiating the third-party review to try and clear our backlog at the city.
Yeah, so we went out for the third-party review contracts. We selected 3 firms. 2 of those firms are currently under contract. 1 firm we're still negotiating with on the contract terms and some of the final scoping. We've already started using the first firm that submitted with some of the third-party review work, and we're looking to add that second firm into some review work in the upcoming week. I think we had, I don't remember what the exact numbers were, maybe 23 submittals this last week on Thursday for the TRC meeting. So it's still staying quite busy, but we're working to get them on board and helping bring that backlog down. We've been bringing the backlog down internally as well. It's just not as fast as we would like it to be when we get big submittal days like that.
Councilor Parker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And honestly, thank you again, Mr. Fountain. I mean, I know the intention here is not to, I hope, I've been here 2.5 years. I mean, I ultimately just want to make the process better. Anytime I hear from a constituent or anything, if we can help, we've talked about environmental services, same thing. We've had these conversations for 2.5 years. is there a way, it's just like you said, and again, I don't mean to harp on it, but it's a project like this seems fairly simple. But when you see that timeline, again, it's sort of bogging y'all down, right? I mean, you're getting a submittal, comments, submittal. I mean, 3 submittals, I guess, are we up to the 4th now? Or okay, 3 submittals for a project that is there a way to, bear with me, gentlemen. I mean, that's what we're here for, right? This committee. I mean, how can we streamline that so that some of these, especially, so I granted these stormwater, this is way above my pay grade. I mean, these stormwater projects and engineering, I absolutely understand that the complexities involved. I don't pretend to know all of it, but on these smaller projects, is there a way to help the department? Councilmember Waring, I know you and I talked about this last year. I mean, just with that increase in, help me, monetary, allowing them to expedite the contracts at a specific value. I mean, we were working off of 2014 values, not 2024 prices. So is there anything? I just hope that if there's a way that we can help expedite specifically, I think these smaller projects,
If I may, Mr. Chairman, and I'm
Yes, sir,
glad
Mr.
for
Mayor.
you to answer, Mr. Fountain as well. But we've had a lot of these conversations. In part, this is one of the main reasons to help on for the reorganization that we've just implemented. And we'll talk a little bit about that at Councilman Gregory's request in the July meeting. So I'll give you a little bit more color there, but the whole TRC process, just having it and large resting under Tim Keene, I think will be helpful for internal communications and making sure that we at the city are doing everything and communicating and coordinating between departments as efficiently as possible. And then you made a really good point, Councilman Parker, and this is something that Mr. Fountain and his team has suggested. I'll let you fill in more, Matt, but in terms of the ordinance for stormwater is up for, I guess, review. It's almost 5 years old, and there's some good suggestions from staff on how to perhaps bifurcate between smaller projects and larger projects to help smaller projects be expedited or not have some of the more, well, I don't want to, Matt, maybe you can explain what the context was when we had our meeting, gosh, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, Mayor, I think we had discussed there's a few items within the stormwater manual as we've seen it kind of play out over the last few years that we think certain sites are kind of getting, I mean, I hate to use kind of parlance that it sounds bad, but they're almost getting caught, for lack of a better word, in some of the requirements that weren't exactly how it was intended to work. Primarily for really small sites where we've had to look at some alternative options where there just physically isn't room to add stormwater sometimes to the project site. So as the mayor mentioned, we've got a few ideas that we're going to put together for some modifications to the manual to try to clean up some of that. And then there's a couple language changes we'd like to make that sometimes for some of the out-of-town engineers that are not as familiar with how the manual works, where I think they'll get caught in confusion in the language, where the local engineers know it because they do it all the time. But there's a couple areas that can be, we think they make sense, but I can see how someone else could potentially get confused. And we've done a few white papers to kind of explain how that works. But that only helps if you've read the technical procedure documents. So we do have some changes that we think will make it a little cleaner and a little bit more straightforward for some of the sites. We'd like to put a floor on one of our requirements where right now there's one specific requirement you can kind of keep getting caught in stormwater reductions. And the intent was really to cap that where you don't ever have to get better than like a grass field. But it isn't clear enough in the manual that's the setup. So we want to get that changed. And then the other one that is a legitimate issue that the mayor touched on earlier with the third-party reviews, the backlog is a real issue, right? I mean, that is a legitimate concern from developers and applicants that when it takes us longer to get to a review than we have scheduled to get to the review, like that is a problem. And we're trying to do a couple of different routes to, including the third-party reviews, to speed that back up. So at least there's a shorter turn on the review. That doesn't necessarily give you fewer reviews, which is a challenge both sides need to work on of how do we get clarity on review, but it does give our reviewers even more time, if we can get the backlog down, to spend more time with the applicants explaining the comments, which can help reduce resubmittals if there's confusion on a comment. So a lot of work, I think, of trying to, again, be a better, on both sides, be better partners with developers in the city rather than kind of being antagonistic, which tends to lead to much longer review times. It helps if we can meet in the middle on a lot of things.
If I may,
Councilman Gregory, yeah.
yeah, Matt, if you were fully staffed, would we then need the third party?
So Councilor Gregory, that's a great question. The staffing, we were short-staffed last year for review until we did hire at the end of last year to close that short staffing. We hadn't requested another reviewer in the budget because honestly, when interest rates went up like they did, we expected to see a slowdown in submittals this year, and that did not occur. So we are staffed on the professional review staff appropriately for what we had budgeted. We are short in field ops, and we were short in project management until very, very recently, with one person starting in a couple weeks. Field ops is really the only place we still have substantial vacancies. So the third-party reviews are trying to figure out how do we deal with these surges that we're getting, and we have some strategies associated with that. What we need to see is now the cost of the third-party review work versus the in-house review, and figure out where do we go long term. Is it by staffing up, or is it by continuing with the extensive use of third-party review potentially?
So the lack of having the kind of support staff necessary is affecting things.
I mean, from a field operations perspective, from a maintenance perspective, yes. From a regulatory perspective, not substantially at this point. I mean, you could say that we missed it in an assumption that we weren't going to continue to see the growth that we've been seeing. That's always what's so hard with government hiring, right? Is that we look back when we hire, but the work is forward, right? So we're setting a budget last year, guessing what's going to happen this year, and then there's no way to kind of shift that in the year. So we're trying to shift it by going to the third-party review. So do we have problems in field operations with staffing? Absolutely. Professional staffing, we've been doing much better.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I have another question. It's sort of off the wall, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
All right, go ahead. We're going to charge you twice the price, but go ahead.
That's all right. That's all right. This has to do with the drainage project and not being able to get the pumps to really complete that project. Will the cost go up? Because we had an initial date, of 24 to have the pumps in and working. And now we're at 25, potentially 26. Will the cost of the pumps go up?
That's a great question, Councilor Gregory. No, we did an early procurement for those pumps in order to lock those prices in back in 2022, I think it was. So we purchased the pumps on a fixed price purchase prior to hiring the contractor for phase 5. We went back to the STIB at the time, and the STIB was willing to supply that additional $21.5 million of grant funding to the project to close the funding gap. So that I mean, I'm knocking on wood, but that fully funded the project. All the costs are fixed and in contract, and the contractor's been moving along very well on pace and on budget for that project. So I think it did slow us down from that 2024
Yes, it did.
date, but we were able to manage the cost issues of having a multi-year lead time on pumps and the diesel generators for those pumps by doing that early procurement.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and one thing, if you look on your agenda today, H1, one of the improvements was, and I'll read it after we approved the $19.6 million contract. With the approval of the project budget, staff is authorized to award and/or amend contracts less than 100,000 to extent contingency funds exist in the council approved budget. It used to be anything over $40,000, they had to come back to council. Okay.
Yes.
That's the amendment that Councilor Parker, we talked about that has been implemented and allowed, I think will allow it a more effective flow when this work begins on this huge street project. It used to be, Mr. Mayor, over $40,000. These guys had to come back to us, get on the agenda, have it debated, go, come on. So some of it is beginning to get through, Ms. Parker. This is one of the things we had talked about that's on the agenda today. Listen, good compliments, good discussion, moving us in the right direction. I think we're all in on James Island, I believe, Ms. Parker. But we do have an executive session that we need to get to. That's on the miscellaneous business, I-1. Executive session, is Ms. Copeland, or who's gonna handle that?
Yes, sir. I'll be handling that.
All right, so we need a motion to go into executive session, and I
So
would
moved.
ask that
Second.
hopefully all council members, I see Mr. McBride on it as well, be able to come into the executive session.
Yep,
And
I'm good.
Philip, if you wouldn't mind, would you also include Beth Brownlee and Matt Fountain?
I
And this
can
is-
definitely do that. I was just about to ask. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Julia.
Appreciate it. Robbie, do you want to be in executive session? You're welcome to come. I wasn't planning on having you.
I'm here to listen, if it's okay.
All right, we'll bring Philip, please bring Robbie in as well.
Yeah, I can do that for sure.
Thank you.
All right, starting now, it should be, you'll have to press
Got it.
join, I think.
Yes, sir.
Are you able to put me in executive session too? This is Elizabeth Deek.
Hi, Liz. Julia didn't tell me that I can, but I can, and if they ask you to leave, we can just have you come back out. That should be good.
Great, thanks.
Let me see if I can assign you. Okay,
Awesome.
just got to click the join. They are. That's the plan. The guards aren't here? Is that new policy with the new people? Huh. The doors are locked at least, though. I'm not worried about it. I get to sit here and play on my phone. hmm Is the other side already all good? Okay. Okay. Yeah, they started about 4 minutes ago, so I don't know how long it's going to go. Yeah, sure. No problem. Have a good evening. Yeah, she is. She's in the executive session as well. Okay, great.
I was one of those people who was visiting not slightly as invited something to a Sean show that was extremely inaccurate. Like, get it together, Emily. It's okay. Anyways, I'm on episode 7 of season 1 right now. There haven't been enough enemies to lovers for me yet. I really want some people who hate each other to start kissing soon, but I'm sure we'll get that eventually. There's also been a shocking lack of infidelity. There has been infidelity, just not as much as I would normally expect from a Shondaland special. So we'll see what happens there. We don't know who Jane Austen Gossip Girl Lady Whistledown is yet. At least I do. Almost, are you ready to go now? Piled up so fast in Vietnam. I used to stay.
Welcome back, everybody.
It's I say Councilman Gregory. For the record, I need to state that we are out of executive session. We went into executive session for legal advice and no action was taken. Now, the chair entertains a motion on, Ms. Copeland, help me out on this one. I know we need to take some action on, I need the form of the motion that we need to take. Mr. Mayor, you want to lead that motion? How we want?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I'll defer to Ms. Copeland, but I'd make the motion that we ask legal counsel to provide an opinion on the stormwater calculations related to the proposed fire station off of Maybank Highway to review and approve, or to review and discuss at council.
Not to interrupt, Mr. Chairman, but I do believe we have to motion to come out of executive session first.
We've already done that part.
All right, my bad.
Well, did you, Councilman Waring? I just want to make sure. 'cause
Maybe I did. I
I think
announced
we
what
did
it
it in
was.
executive session.
I did announce that we didn't take any action. So let's take a motion to come out.
So moved to move out of executive session.
Second.
Probably moved in second. Any questions on that motion? All in favor, would you please say aye? Any opposed? I didn't hear the ayes. All in favor,
Aye.
please say
Aye, aye.
Any opposed? No. Now we out of executive session. Let's do it again. I announced that we did go in executive session to obtain legal advice. And we took no action while in executive session. Now, what's the motion? Ms. Copeland, you have any adjustments to what the motion that the mayor is getting ready to make?
I just had a question. Just a question before we move forward.
Okay. All right. No, we got a motion on the floor and then we can continue discussion, Councilman Gregory. Let's do that. Unless you think it's gonna affect the motion.
I'm just not sure what it is.
So let me make the motion again. I would ask that, make a motion that legal provide an opinion regarding and a recommendation to council regarding the stormwater calculations as it relates to the proposed fire station on Maybank Highway, and present to council for review and a vote.
Okay. Let me ask, that's the motion. Chair can't second the motion. So
I'll second it for discussion.
okay, good deal. All right. So is this motion going to be ready tomorrow for council's meeting? Ms. Copeland?
I think it can. I can have it ready. I'll get it to you in the morning.
Can I have a discussion question, Mr. Chairman?
Councilman Gregory?
Yeah. Ms. Copeland, are we going to use the waiver approach given the exigency associated with this particular project, as opposed to necessarily changing the rule at this point?
Yes, sir. That's what we're asking for.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure we're clear.
Okay. Any more input? All right, chair calls the question. All in favor of the motion, would you please say aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. That's the end of extent of our agenda today. Listen, we covered a lot of territory, even breaking some new ground. So good meeting. Any last comments? By acclamation, we stand adjourned. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.